Hey everyone, it's Tristan here. Sitting down to play some Halo 5 with none other than the game's design director, Brad Welch.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you very much for joining me, Brad. We're going to take a look at the first couple of levels from the game's campaign. Only you'll be hearing some special insights from one of the main men that made it. So let's jump in.
All right, let's go.
This is from the absolute beginning of the game
Yep.
that we're going to be playing. So where do you... Well, we're just waiting for this to load. Loading times aren't too bad. Great optimization. Pass that on to the team. What's the... where do you sort of start when you're building a level in a Halo game?
We start with the high level pitch for what someone wants to do in the mission,
Right.
and then we sort of move into like a really low detail block out, so you can actually start running through the level. You can throw a few enemies in, just start to get a feel for the space, and then it sort of evolves from there through to the. We try and work out as much as we can before we stick an army of artists onto it. And then they have to spend a long time making it look beautiful.
And how much sort of, once the artists are in there, is there still constant kind of back and forth, adding elements?
For a fair while, yeah. We try and structure how we work on them to keep the window open as long as possible to tweak stuff. And then, as you get right to the very end, it's mostly bug fixes, but there's still some tweaks in there. The problem you have with making games is there's an old adage that every time you fix a bug, you just made two new bugs you didn't know about, but hopefully they're not as bad as the one you just fixed. And so, the further in you get, the more careful you got to be.
Can we skip through this?
Yeah, sure.
Cutscene?
Yeah.
Nice. Skippable cutscenes, always a plus.
Yep.
So here we are getting into the action proper. Nice kill. Oh wait, that was scripted. You didn't even do that, did you? But you still made it look good.
Doing my best. Uh-oh.
Sorry, that's my bad. I am an inverter. You're playing under my profile.
Okay.
I would have expected you to adapt, but that's fine.
No. That's one I can't adapt to.
What's the split at 3-4-3? Is there even sort of inverters and non-inverters?
No, it's not.
And do they sit on opposite sides of the office?
No, I actually sit next to a chronic inverter, and
you mean someone who plays games correctly?
Quite incorrectly, yes. One of the freaks, as we like to call them.
What?
No offense intended.
Fair enough.
So we're just in the start of the mission here. One thing we tried to do from that cinematic was just carry a bunch of details over into the opening. And so we're going in as Fireteam Osiris, our new characters.
This looks epic, by the way. I mean, this whole vista is just...
Yeah, we put a lot of time into trying to make the play spaces feel alive, and the whole setup with Locke was that he was sort of taking sort of a back entrance in, although it was a pretty dramatic entrance with an exploding ship. And then this whole battle's kind of raging between the Forerunners and the Covenant out there. Let's just kind of come down here into the next battle. This is just like an opening battle just to get players going, get them set up.
And how did... By the way, I mean, obviously you've got the kind of shoulder charge or shoulder barge and the sort of ground pound. And I mean, how does that kind of affect the way that you sort of design the layout of a...
The shoulder charge, we have a lot of hidden pathways through the level. I'll show some in a bit.
Okay, cool.
That you can shoulder bash through, and kind of need to build in a bit of a run up for those. Make sure there's plenty of space. The ground pound actually had a lot more changes because between Clamber and ground pound we put in lots of these multi-level kind of areas. So if we kind of go over here, and we built them into all the combat spaces, so you can then kind of ground pound down onto enemies, and you have a lot of options of how you want to move around the space and fight. And that was kind of, we've generally tried to increase the amount of options players have in the combat spaces, using all the new traversal abilities to kind of let players exploit that. And also it's cool in co-op too. You can kind of mix and match between different players and get really cool combos.
Do you favour the Needler?
No, I just kind of like the smart link we added to it. It looks pretty cool with the offset guns. So. Well, the Needle's pretty awesome against like shielded elites. It's a pretty effective weapon.
Yeah.
But we kind of did updates to all the Forerunner weapons in the game. So these are a bit different to the way they were if you played Halo 4. we kind of wanted them to be more kind of like, you know, an SMG or an assault rifle, kind of a utility weapon that you can use all through the Forerunner encounters. So those 2 new Promethean soldiers just appeared there and chase them through here.
I definitely appreciate the kind of exploded diagram reload animations.
Yeah, animators had a fun time with all that. So this is one of the new mechanics. They've teleported through this wall, so we can now shoulder bash through the wall. It's kind of really just the start of the game, so it's kind of a training section for that. And then we start using them all over the place, and you can find hidden routes and quite often have extra weapons. And another new thing that Locke's got is the tracking ability, which lets him find things. Chief doesn't have this. You can't really see it from up there, but my controller's vibrating when I do this. And collectibles get highlighted with that kind of glowy sphere. And now I can kind of come in and we have lots of these data pads. There's 117 across the game.
117?
Yeah. And just reward exploration all over the game, add a bit of additional story to the game. There's a little kind of side story. Sometimes it's about the environment. Sometimes it's about the characters in it. It's all optional, but, you know, it just fleshes out the world for players that are really into the lore. The suppressor's now kind of got a bit of a chain gun style wind up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And light rifle is pretty similar to the way it used to be, but instead of having the triple shot when you aim in, it just has a more precise and deadly single shot. So this is one of the kind of first areas where we open things up. You've got like this route down the middle here. You've got like another side path off down the side there.
I didn't notice that one when I played through.
Take the top one here. Yeah, there's also a lot of areas that are kind of built with speedrunning in mind, where you can kind of jump off the side of the map and then thrust back in.
Right.
So we've got some of our testers are pretty crazy. We get some crazy speed runs.
So wait, so those things are from your perspective, those things are all sort of intentional, or are the testers kind of breaking the game effectively?
Kind of a bit of both. Like we want to leave a certain amount of intentional kind of breakage in there, so people can optimize how they play. They can do speed runs.
Right.
So we kind of think about it. I mean, we definitely fix a lot of the more egregious bugs with the game.
Right.
But we do quite often leave things in where we're like, you know, it's not so bad, and let someone get a really fast run through an area, or they can skip around an encounter, as long as it's not, you know, too obvious or too easy to do. And it's kind of a skill move then for campaign. Because speedrunners are a pretty hardcore group for Halo, so we want to support them, and you know they'll keep replaying the game a whole lot after we launch. So we want to give them plenty to chew on. So we've got the new thrust ability as well for doing thrust evades, and you can use it to extend your jumps and doing thrust jumps. Depends which difficulty you're on, but you kind of need to use it more in the later part of the game to throw off the aim on the enemies.
Yeah, I played through it on normal because it's just how I live my life. And yeah, I like when you're playing against like sort of the warden who has that big sword. Wait, am I spoiling anything by saying that?
Maybe
we'll publish this tomorrow once the game's out. You know, I found myself using the sort of boosted dodge. There, but not so much early on. But yeah, I can see if had I been playing on Legendary or something, then it would definitely be useful.
Yeah, that character we designed around being mobile.
Yeah.
Around it.
Yeah, well, you don't want to get in his path, that's for sure.
No. So over here, like, there's another little secret route over here. And there's a scatter shot. This guy's a little bit updated. He's pretty similar to Halo 4. It's kind of still a shotgun type weapon. But on the when you zoom in now, the shots actually will bounce, and you can reflect.
Nice.
Actually home in on the enemies a bit. And it's pretty powerful up close. Oh, I'm out of ammo. Not good. I'm probably playing recklessly here.
What was the kind of origin of the ground pound as a move?
I'm trying to remember. We kind of went through a period of we were trying to expand out all the core movement abilities, and we played around with a bunch of different things. There was actually even some stuff we tried on Halo 4 and didn't end up shipping in that game.
Oh, okay.
And then so we went back to it on 5, and we just tried a bunch of things out. Like I think the Clamber was the first one that really kind of just worked, and we started incorporating it into level designs. Ground Pound we worked on for quite a while. I mean, in the beta last year, we had different controls on it, and we didn't really feel like we landed the controls on it very well for the beta, and we went back and made it sim. It's just on a hold melee button now instead of the hold crouch that was in the beta. And so it took a while to get that right, but once we kind of got it in the mix, we started using a lot of the vertical level design and trying to build combat encounters where you can sort of flank and get above enemies and do the ground pound on them.
How much did the beta help? Because I think public betas are great because the earlier that fans can get their hands on games they love, the better. But how much of it is a marketing exercise, and how much of it is actually really valuable for you guys?
I mean, our beta was actually a real beta. We did it a year out, so there was a lot of the game was not really finished. It actually took us quite a while out of our development schedule to do the beta.
Right.
But
so it was a big commitment.
It was a big commitment, and it pushed us to get some things ready that weren't otherwise ready. So it was kind of good in that regard.
Right.
And in terms of feedback, I mean, it was hugely useful to us because we're changing quite a few of the mechanics up. So we really wanted to kind of see how players were going to take to those changes, see how it worked in the arena environment, which is usually the one that kind of taxes all the mechanics the most,
right?
Pushes them. So it was hugely useful just to see. We both, in terms of getting feedback and also just looking at the data of like how people played. We used it to stress test the early versions of our matchmaking,
right.
And so there's a whole bunch of things that we got out of that beta.
Was there, like, video game fans, and this is not specific to Halo fans, video game fans in general, I don't really mince words. Was there anything that they really didn't like during the beta? Like, quite...
I mean, we definitely have a pretty vocal fan base, and there's a bunch of people who like just having the game pure, traditional, no changes at all.
Right.
And, to some degree, we can't give them everything they want.
Yep.
But in terms of, like, critical feedback, I mean, I think a lot of it was down to just more tuning type things.
Right.
We kind of toned down. There was a lot of the weapons had heavy headshot multipliers,
right.
Which we were already kind of on the fence about before we went into the beta. And so actually a few things we actually just let go through because we kind of wanted to see how people reacted to them.
Right.
So that was one of those. The controls on the ground pound we weren't really happy with at the time, but we just had to ship. So we kind of knew we were going to get feedback on that one. So it was kind of, there was like timings on things like shield recharges and all sorts of things like that we didn't, I think my memory's getting fuzzy now. I don't think we had the sprint modifying the shield recharge in the beta, and we added that later on,
right.
As a reaction to try and, stop too much sprinting out of combat all the time. And trying to, that was kind of out of, we really wanted sprint to have some meaningful choice to it. So if you're going to commit to doing a sprint across a battlefield, there's some sort of trade-off there.
Right, yep.
I think I might have actually completely gone past the skull. Because I was talking and I missed it.
That's okay. That's probably my bad. When you're sort of designing the campaign in its entirety, there's got to be certain beats that you have to hit with a Halo game. Like, you've got to have an awesome stretch for the Scorpion tank.
Right.
Is there kind of like a manifesto for...
It's not so much a manifesto as we kind of do. We do like big beat maps for the whole game.
Right.
As we'll sort of block out the missions. I mean, when we started on this, the game's pretty big already, but it was actually quite a bit larger in early plans because we were insane and stupid, and so we trimmed it back a bit. But there was a lot of different beats across all those different plans as we sort of as things came together. This is quite a few years ago now.
Right.
And so we have the map, and we have things like, all right, we want to get a Scorpion run in, we want to do flying vehicle section, we want to and some of that's still coming into existence while we're still, like, say, working on a new vehicle or a new weapon, or we're working on the new enemies. So some of it we sort of take on faith, a bit of like, we're going to try and do a section for this new vehicle, this new enemy. And so, we definitely plan that out pretty early, and then sometimes that changes as you actually kind of implement them. If something turns out really fun, we might do it a couple of times. But we, there's a lot of key moments where we got to have, we've got to have some big vehicle moments. We want big open combat spaces. We want some narrow areas. We have like big set pieces, like the Kraken coming in there. Is one that actually came in a little bit later on from after the start of this mission. It wasn't originally in here. And we had it later in the game, and we sort of brought it into this to add a bit of zing to this whole area. And so there's it's mixed. Sometimes we plan it out quite heavily, and sometimes we just moment of inspiration someone on the team will have, and it's like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's try it. That's cool. And you get a bit of both. And then usually if we do the moment of inspiration one, we get yelled at by producers and programmers have to make it work.
Yeah.
So we added these guys up here, the new soldiers, and they're using the Splinter turret, which is we wanted to get a new Forerunner mounted weapon in, and sort of like an arc lob bomb. It's pretty cool. So there's not really a turret that was like that already. So
that's cool.
Kind of like a grenade launchery feel. And they're pretty lethal. So especially on the higher difficulties, they're pretty dangerous. But also, if you take them out, then you can take it into the next combat encounter with you. Which is a good one to do in here in the final battle of this mission. Just grabbing one of those turrets is a really good way to approach that one, because you can take out the knights in there easily.
I always grab a turret.
Yeah.
Always. There's no turret that I pass that doesn't go ungrabbed.
I'm taking it. Yeah. There's another collectible up here. And they're pretty much all through the game. We've got lots of little nooks and crannies with the collectibles in. So the Prometheans this time, we changed their way they take damage a little bit. We obviously added the soldiers in, but we wanted them all to have that kind of weak point that you can then take out. The knights in 4 had shields on, and we sort of wanted to move away from that because it was too similar to the Covenant. So they all now have these kind of weak points that open up, and then if you shoot them there, you can get the kill on them.
I feel like the AI has sort of improved quite substantially. Not that, I mean, like, since the first game, AI has been a sort of notch above most other shooters in the Halo series. But I feel like, I don't know if I've just been playing inferior games lately, but it feels like this game has taken it up even further. I mean, would you agree with that?
We definitely put a lot of work on into it, I think. We definitely put a lot of work into the AI.
Yep.
And then we also, we had the companion AI from the other characters as well as the enemies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a signature in the game. On 4, we were actually, because we sort of inherited the engine and then started updating it, we had to learn how all of that worked. It was actually quite challenging to even get our first kind of version of the character up in the game. So we were learning a lot, and so this time around we got to spend more time actually improving things. We did, as well as the new characters and updating the knights to work with the new weak points. We tweaked the hunters are quite a bit more challenging now. They'll swat grenades away. They have different melee berserk attacks when you take one of the pair down. So there's a lot of little things like that we did.
Even the hunters, just their kind of awareness seem better. I noticed, like, every time that I'd use like a squad command for the rest of the squad to attack the hunter, and then I'd circle around. Classic kind of pincer movement.
Right, yep.
And he'd be onto me.
Yeah. We actually kind of, we had to tweak the enemies quite a bit because of the always being 3 other AIs running around. Or players. We actually, the way they react and the speed at which they react, we tweak quite a bit, because they, it's when you get multiple players in the mix, I mean, in all traditional co-op, you can kind of get them a little bit confused between targets.
Yeah.
And so we had to kind of make them deal with incoming fire. And some of that we just did with more enemies in the encounters, generally.
Right.
But some of it we did with how they react to things, like who do they focus on. You know, you don't want them to just ignore the player and shoot at the AI because the bit of the challenge goes away with that. So there's a lot of tweaking and tuning we have to do to actually get that all feeling right. There's another little collectible up here for folks.
I didn't know that.
So a little message from Halsey there.
Nice.
All right, let's charge up through here. I think track up there. So we kind of, with the tracking, we wanted to move away from having any objectives blipped as well. So if you just want to play through, and we actually did UR tests on this to make sure people could get through without using it, and it was fine. People were getting through okay, and they could explore, but it's always just there on the one button press on the D-pad as a backup if you get a bit lost or you want to work out where to go. I think it helps like the environment feel a bit more like you're exploring it. Then you sort of make the choice of whether you want to highlight things or not, or you just want to keep wandering through yourself.
I can. However, I did not claim to be able to access it instantaneously.
Excellent aging blemishes.
On our character team puts an insane amount of work into that stuff. I remember walking past the guy's desk who does all the character faces and just having like all different skins up, trying to get it just right. They put. I mean,
all different. Oh, it sounds like the apartment of a serial killer.
It kind of, it's like puts the lotion on. Those guys just. I mean, their attention to detail is insane. Our character team. Those guys are amazing.
Oh, it's an amazing looking game. No question.
But yeah, I mean, there's all those little details. You know, people spend quite a bit of time. Just working on to look right, like all the little materials on the armors, which bits are rubber, which bits are metal. They have like giant style guides for what type of materials and all the different parts, and they spend a long time on getting that right. And the cinematics, you kind of get to see those assets in their all their glory.
Up close, yeah. Nice.
Yeah, and this was actually like wrapping up sort of a plot line coming out of Halo 4 with Jewel as the leader of the Covenant guys in that. And we sort of deliberately wanted to move on from this quickly, as we could have spent more time with it, but it just wasn't really in the core plot of Halo 5. Right. So the longer we kind of lingered on it, the more it kind of made the story harder to kind of get into for Halo 5.
Right.
So we wanted to kind of get Halsey back and kind of wrap that storyline up.
I've got to be honest with you that I have played every Halo game, every campaign, enjoyed them all, well, pretty much. I can't really think of maybe some more than others, but consistently I've enjoyed them. Obviously, I've kept going back. I don't really follow the story,
right?
I know there's different races and planets with rings around them and what have you, but I just want to shoot aliens at the end of the day.
Yeah, we actually kind of look at it as like layers of depth, because we have people who are like crazy lore fans, and at the basic level, we kind of want players just to get the basic of like, hey, his Lock and Chief, and Lock's hunting after Chief, and then
I get that. Yeah,
and then we try and get that layer right, and then it's sort of like peeling an onion of how much more story you get. Do you understand the Covenant factions?
But here's the thing, Brad. I hate peeling onions.
It makes you cry.
It's
probably not the best analogy.
I see what you mean, though.
Yeah, it's just there if you want it, and all the way down to finding the collectibles, and getting lots of extra little lore about
audio
the
logs and things.
Yeah. So we try and do that. There's quite a bit of story in the conversations between the fire team members.
Look out! Who's this?
Looks a bit familiar.
He looks a bit shaky there.
Seen this guy before? Yeah. He's a bit nervous.
He's getting old.
Yeah,
he's too old for this. Bleep.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was kind of a big moment for us, was bringing in Blue Team, and it's an interesting one, like you were saying with the story, for extended fiction fans. Like, these guys have been in the books, and fans have been clamoring to have them in the game, and this finally gave us the excuse to get everyone in. And this is kind of a direct counterpoint to the opening cinematic, which that one's very kind of over the top, kind of very action packed, lots of moving parts. This one we wanted these guys to be much more precise and kind of almost like contemplative, like they're having very quiet conversation.
Right.
They just book it straight out to where they're going, and they're just super. I guess they're matter of fact about everything because they're Spartan 2, so they're kind of like the ultimate badass.
Yeah.
Spartans. They've seen a lot of stuff over the years, and so this is kind of like routine to them. and also just the way they interact is very. I actually quite like it. Some of the character dialogue between them is very. It's not really funny, but it's kind of like they have this very dry tone between them.
Yeah, there's banter.
It's very dry banter and very matter of fact. Like kind of, they know they're good, and I really like that as a kind of counterpoint to Osiris, who are a bit kind of more, having quips and kind of got Buck making jokes in the middle of combat and all that sort of
like
stuff.
nervous gags.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of this came out of working with the cinematics team, and we put all the thruster abilities and all the new mechanics are kind of really based around thrusters on the armor. So we started to work that into cinematics as well,
right?
And sort of like the next kind of logical upgrade for the suits. And yeah, just barely just flinch, and then he's out the window, whatever. Catch you later, dude.
So this is obviously a much more confined level. Than
and this is a bit more traditional. We actually intentionally, the chief missions are a bit more traditional,
right?
In that they're tend to be a little bit longer. They're a bit more linear, although they open up in areas. But more of a traditional feel. And then Chief doesn't have the full tracking. He can find his objective, but he doesn't have the scanning and tracking, which actually makes his collectibles harder to find. We can show a few off. And this whole station was designed around, it's an old Oni shipyard, and this ship was actually, when whatever happened to this ship happened, that was still under construction down there, and we're going to go. I'm interested to know whether players really notice this when they're playing, because you actually go down into that ship, and that's the whole second half of the level down in there.
I didn't.
You didn't
by the way, no.
It's always tricky, that stuff. Like, we spend a lot of time sort of obsessing over these details.
So later in this level, while we're playing this, we will actually go where you're.
See,
where
right
you're
down
looking,
there when I go down the elevator.
We can look back up from there.
Yeah, I don't think you can actually see all the way back up from down there, because you're down in that big superstructure.
Gotcha.
But that whole, we'll go down there and I'll sort of point out where it is. But yeah, we think a lot about the spaces and that sort of detail.
Yeah.
So here's another collectible. There's quite a few that are on these station terminals.
I ran straight past that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have time to answer emails.
The pro tip for these ones is that they're usually the ones that are non-functional have got the red malfunctioning sign.
Oh, nice.
And then there's a few of these. So if you keep an eye out for that. And then there's lots of people who met some strange kind of fate on this ship. And some of the logs and things actually kind of will explain a bit around what was going on in here.
Untight just the same.
And the intention in this was to give a bit more of a kind of spooky, creepy vibe in parts of it, and kind of a counterpoint to the kind of all-out action in the first one. And we've got the Covenant back here, obviously.
Move toward the data center.
Not a good grenade throw. And so there's, even in these areas, there's actually lots of little routes. So if I go, if you keep an eye out, there's one up here. I probably should have used it already, because
had no idea that was there.
So if you come up here, and then you can actually drop on. There's actually one of the co-op achievements. You can do it right here if you get you and a buddy.
That's cool.
And you got to assassinate 2 elites at the same time. So if you both come up here, and you don't wake up that whole encounter, you can get the drop on 2 elites at once.
That's a good tip.
And drop in the middle of it. I'll probably get shot in the back.
That's more like it.
And then we've got the new orders stuff, so you can give orders to your fire team to shoot at a dude, and they'll go in and popped his shield and killed him. And so you can use that if you want. And that kind of varies on whether, if you really want to crawl the whole game and just give orders as a non-fighting non-combatant, you can probably do it in the lower difficulty levels if you want to. Take you a while, but you could do it. And we kind of
just hang back and just watch it.
Yeah, we've had testers try and do that, and you can do it through a fair bit of it.
Is there like a pacifist achievement?
No,
I suppose you still got blood on your hands.
There
really.
is. Yeah, you do.
You're giving the orders.
Yeah, we actually did talk about doing something like that, but I think it's not. It's really like an optional thing.
Right.
The main purpose of the orders is really to, kind of cause distractions and flanking in the tougher enemies.
Flanking. Yeah, definitely. I use the orders quite a bit actually. I really like that. Was it always such a kind of streamlined system? Was it always just going to be sort of one
Mostly, yeah. I think we did toy briefly with some like issuing different orders, but it just A, we've got a lot of things on our controller right now, and B, it's sort of a complementary system in the game. So we didn't want to get too complex for people, and we kind of wanted people to use it. So if we made it too complex, people probably would just not use it.
Oh, I'm very much glad that you went with the system that you've got because in the past week I've been playing Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and it has certain commands, not to bag out someone else's product, but it has certain commands where the circle button will have 6 different things tied to it depending on context, and so frequently you're just doing the wrong thing, which is frustrating. So I think simplifying as much as possible. And I think the order system works really well. I mean, it's either shoot this or go there, right?
That's yeah. You can also, I'll show you some stuff. And you can order them to pick up weapons, which is another.
See, I didn't know that, but is that still tied to the one?
Yeah, it's all the one button. So if you point at a weapon, you can get them to pick it up. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, one tactic kind of for getting through the game is you can order them as you find power weapons. Not so useful with just the basic weapons, although they will use them.
Right.
But you could order them all. Find a rocket launcher, give one of them a rocket launcher, then basically get them all loaded up with power weapons. And as long as you don't die and reset at a checkpoint, they'll have that weapon all the way through to the end. So it can be really useful in some of the boss fights, especially on high difficulties.
So again, the order system is much like peeling an onion.
It is, exactly, yeah. And
this game is just a bag of onions.
Well, we actually we do think about the game and how it plays on different difficulties in that way. For instance, we tune normal so that you could, if someone plays through, completely forgets about orders, forgets about all the new abilities, they can still successfully get through the game and just play it like a traditional Halo game. And then we try and amp that up the difficulty levels, and we start to push you. So if you're really skilled, you'll still get through it, but you might want to start to lean on more of these tools as you go up. But
that's no way to speak about your squad mates.
It's they're not, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's it's we kind of trying to keep all these options in the player's hands of you decide what you want to use.
Yeah, it's cool.
Kind of a bit of a juggling act at times, making sure we get everything feeling right. And we do a lot of user testing to make sure that people can still play the game okay, even if they're not using all the tools. When you get up to higher difficulties, we're less fussy. Did a shoulder bash on that enemy there. The AI will do those.
Are you? Yeah, that's sweet. Are you sort of conscious of because most serious Halo players just will go straight to legendary.
Yep.
So are you conscious of making with Halo 4 and now Halo 5 of perhaps trying to make it even more difficult than before, just to provide them with a new challenge? Or
we tried to do that on 5 with Legendary specifically, because we kind of we know how many people play Legendary. It's not crazy huge percentage. So people who go and play Legendary are looking. They're looking for a reason. Yeah. So we actually did a lot. We didn't really do a lot of testing on Legendary with just random people. We kind of used a lot of our more hardcore internal players and especially our testers.
Yeah.
And so the testers get really crazy good at the game because they know where every single thing is. So they're still there's a bit of wiggle room in there. If they say it's challenging, usually it's ridiculously challenging. But that was kind of our baseline for Legendary, was let's get it in the ballpark, with those guys, and then have a slightly wider audience play it. But we definitely erred on the side of keeping it more challenging rather than letting it get easier.
Take that elite.
Copy.
Area's clear.
Hydra here.
This is one of the new weapons we added. This is in the beta, the Hydra launcher.
Yeah. Kind
of a lock-on grenade launcher. This section, I've demoed this section a lot, so I have different ways of playing it. But this was kind of one of the big areas that we quite early on we kind of really latched onto as a area with a lot of options in it. So there's a few in that previous area. I was going up the side route, and you can go through some of the crates. But this one you can go all the way across the top, across all these top railings. You can go straight down the middle, and there's also stuff down the right there where you can take different paths. You can, I can come out up here. Let's take the DMR.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I took the top
Yeah, most people
railings.
kind of take this path.
I mean,
up
yeah,
here.
that's just combat 101, isn't it?
Then
Get the high ground.
Then I can come down here. Yeah, it makes the most sense. But there's other weapons and stuff. Coming out in the middle here is kind of a bit more dangerous, but yeah, the AI are all set up so that they'll, depending on which way you go,
Right.
At least some of them will follow you up the different paths.
Right.
And so yeah, this was another kind of thing we had to work with a lot. Was like how to deal with this many AI, all the players coming through these sections. You can kind of baby the guys up; they're kind of following along with me there, but you can kind of hang back and order them to go up the middle here too. This kind of is an area set up for ground pound, so sort of
Unleash it.
Yeah, we can do it. Let's see if I can get. Let's get these
That's
guys.
nice. That was like a half a dozen.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually spent a lot of time tweaking how effective the ground pound was because it was tricky balance to get because in multiplayer we don't want it too OP.
Yeah.
But we wanted you to feel powerful when you were using it in campaign. So there's a lot there. And we basically balance everything up front for multiplayer because you can't really go back the other way if you make something really powerful in campaign. And then try and dial it back for multiplayer. It just doesn't really work. So we try and make it work in multiplayer and then we sort of tune the AI against that.
Is there a split in the team? Obviously, there is a actual split between people working on multiplayer and single player. But are you is there a rivalry there as well? Or?
I mean, the teams, they're two kind of sub-teams, so they sort of have their own personalities.
Right.
So I work on the campaign team is its own thing, kind of like the multiplayer team is the sandbox team, which is the other part I work on, which is all the game mechanics and movement, weapons, vehicles. We kind of work across everyone, so so we sit in the middle, and when I play with no sound on it, I always find I futz my reloads because I'm used to hearing the sound. No, it's fine. I've kind of done a few demos where it now, and I do it every time. It's my own fault.
I would expect you to be able to play blindfolded at least.
Okay.
I guess you'd still have the sound in that instance.
Yeah, it'd be like Daredevil.
Yeah.
So they're kind of. There's a lot of back and forth between the teams more than rivalry because there's different needs for multiplayer versus the campaign, and
you're kind of you're sort of helping to shape each other's goals, I guess.
I'll actually show you a
look
collectible. What's up here? Here, okay, we go. So if we come up here, there's a collectible. That's kind of cool. What else is up here? Let's have a look around. Ooh, what's that?
And so, you're a Master Chief, obviously. So this would be particularly hard to find.
Yep.
Without being able to scan.
Yeah.
So that's a nice little pro tip.
Yeah. So this is like a Forerunner shotgun called the Blaze of Glory. It's basically a shotgun with
any weapon named after a Bon Jovi song.
Yeah.
Living on a Prayer would be
Living on a
Prayer.
I actually don't know. We might have a weapon named Living on a Prayer. Wouldn't surprise me if someone's put a pun in there.
Bad medicine.
Bad medicine. Yeah.
Dish out some bad medicine.
But so we've got a bunch of those, and those weapons are all in Warzone. But in campaign, once we made those weapons, we're like, let's go and put them in as Easter eggs. So there's quite a few of them scattered around the game to go and find.
Yeah, that's cool. I never saw that weapon in my whole playthrough of the campaign. So wait, was that the only place within the campaign to get that, or is it sort of pop up?
Yeah, no, that for that particular one, I think that's the only. I think we only have most of them are like one-offs. So if you go into a certain level and find it, you can check it out.
That's awesome.
And yeah, there's different ones like that one. I can use it in the next section, but you kind of disintegrates targets like a Forerunner weapon.
Yeah,
cool. Chief's having a bit of a episode. Falls down a hole, has an episode. Yeah, we had a lot of back and forth on how much do we go into Chief's state of mind, and we kind of wanted to get that feeling of like he's on the edge, somewhat.
I think you definitely captured that.
It's good, yeah. Yeah, you can never tell these things until people play it, and it's like, are folks getting that feeling across?
Yeah.
But part of it was like kind of having Blue Team kind of being concerned about him as well.
Yeah.
Parts here.
Chief,
What does he look like underneath the mask?
Pasty old white dude. There's always joke about. Actually, we were talking about it this morning. Was like there's a running joke of like because he's in his 40s now, and in the story, and he spends a lot of time in that armor, and he's got like recycling systems, and I'm sure we've got a guide somewhere that kind of shows it all off, but I think your skin's going to be too good after sitting in that armor. For a while.
Just like sweating constantly.
Probably
It's pretty hot in there.
Bit of Darth Vader going on maybe under there.
Yeah. I was thinking more like the guys from Slipknot. That they, I'm not a huge fan of that band or anything, but they wear masks. Or some of them do anyway. Yeah. And I remember reading that they never clean them because they're a metal band.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of bacteria and stuff growing in there. Disgusting. Anyways,
this is the future. I'm sure there's self-cleaning systems.
True. Or some kind of cool alien organism that eats bacteria or something that sort of lives in the.
So this area is definitely, we try to do a much creepier kind of vibe in here. And this path quite often splits, and so you can take a couple of paths down through here.
I was wondering that because I thought I was just nailing it and finding the exact path. So there are...
That took a long time to get to because we spent a long time with people getting lost trying to get down.
Right.
We use, if you come back around here, one typical technique we use is we have the lighting here, and then we have these sparks and things, and then also we always lead you down, so there's dialogue from the characters talking about that, and we just try and create that feeling of as long as you're going down, you're going in the right direction. But there's actually a lot of work that goes into that sort of thing. When you do split paths like this, it's actually pretty challenging.
So the sparks are just a visual cue to sort of beckon you.
Yep. Yeah.
Nice. So it's not something that you really think about when you're playing.
No,
all this stuff's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, as you kind of playtest the game, you get points where you put it into playtest, people just stop at a wall, and they're like, I have no idea where to go.
Yep.
And so you have to start working through the sleepy grunts here. Let's can kill them all without waking them up.
Why are they so sleepy?
They're just they have a hard day.
Hard day.
Getting harassed by elites.
Screaming at people.
Yeah.
I love that, by the way, when they're...
The fart pack.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what the technical term was, but
it's actually their methane gas pack. Because they breathe methane gas. But they do the little kind of methane gas jumps when they're jumping to get a little boost.
Right. Yeah, but it is cool when you rupture that gas bag and they go flying through the air.
Come on, Fred.
Active camouflage.
There, you thought kind of doing a dark area like this was really good for cloaked elites.
So this shotgun's cool, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm bummed that I didn't find it. I'll have to go back.
So then we got other little areas through here. So actually, that's just coming back in the way I came. So there's a couple of that's the second route into here. So you can come through there and actually get the drop on all those grunts too.
Not enough. Something about Meridian.
Meridian's a backwater.
One thing I didn't notice, and I mentioned this to you because you are an Aussie. In the old Halo games, there was always an Aussie Marine. Really stood out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, he's total bogan. Chips Dubbo, I think they call him.
Dubbo?
They have I don't know where the name came from, but his nickname's Chips Dubbo. And there's actually achievements in Master Chief Collection for playing alongside him in each of the games.
Yeah, right. But is there I didn't really... Are there any Aussie soldiers in this game?
No, we don't really have a lot of separate Marines in the combat encounters, so we didn't actually get to go into that too much. But no, it's probably just a racist thing. People are always
disappointed.
Making Foster's jokes at me, and I'm I don't drink Canadian beer, and which is probably a joke that doesn't make any sense because if you go and buy Foster's in the US, it's either brewed in Canada or somewhere it's the American South or something.
Yeah. Well, no matter where you buy it in the world, it's awful, right?
Yeah. It's well, they have this thing. I don't know if it's anywhere else in the world, but in the US they have something that's called Premium Foster's, which is kind of an oxymoron.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. So pretty much Foster's
slightly less awful.
Foster's jokes and Outback Steakhouse jokes are your lot in life as an Australian in America.
Yeah.
Outback Steakhouse does not have any vaguely Australian food.
No, I have seen the menu.
I did get a free dessert there once from being Australian, so that was.
Oh, that's a
was
good
nice.
tip for any travellers.
Yeah. You can try it on, see if they'll give you one.
Yeah. What was the dessert? Something quintessentially Australian, like an apple pie?
It probably had some Australian thing tacked onto the name that made no sense whatsoever. I think they had a cocktail called a Darling Harbour there.
Oh yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah. But yeah, the food itself is just a standard steakhouse. I mean, the one they always go on about is the blooming onion, which is this 3,000 calorie pile of lard and onions. I don't recommend it.
A blooming onion?
Yeah, blooming onion.
Okay. That does sound like something that Alf from Home and Away would say.
Yeah. Oh,
so, I guess that could be authentic.
This guy, I think, is going to take us down with his sword. No, maybe.
Nice save there.
I'll take this elite. I'm locked up. Can't move.
Another thing we did with the weapons. Where are you running around? Is that elite? There he is. Tried to make. Oh, come on. There we go. Got him. Tried to make things like the plasma pistol have a bit more utility this time, so they you can. I mean, it's got the same charge shot it's always had, but but now it's got a bit more precise weapon.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Linda's gone down. So basically, when
it's all right. She'll be back.
She'll be
magically.
Yeah, the Musketeers, we basically made them obey the rules that the players follow. So if you get to a point where the players would have reset, here's a little room in here. It's probably another one if you're looking for the last collectible. Actually, this one kind of challenging to find. It's behind some debris, but there's another collectible in there.
What was that gun? Was that just a...
It's another Hydra.
Oh, okay.
So I'll take the Hydra.
In terms of obviously the squad makes sense for the story, but in terms of having your teammates that heal you and vice versa, was that a kind of a deliberate thing to make? Like, I'm thinking more so the kind of normal difficulty, making the game more easier for newcomers, perhaps, or
it was more out of just we wanted like a teamwork mechanic, so you kind of rely on them. It does make it a bit easier to get, you still get slowed down, but you don't get reset at checkpoints as much. So it's sort of, I mean, we knew that was going to happen somewhat, but it wasn't the explicit reason that we did it. But it does give you that second chance in combat, so you sort of feel like you're not taken out of the game flow all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it definitely flows a lot better than the sort of Halos of old, where you could be right towards the end of an encounter and die, and then all of a sudden you're right back at the checkpoint to do the whole thing over again.
Station log there. Yeah, so it's sort of a two-edged sword. I mean, part of that is, as we go up the difficulty levels, we have to do a lot of tuning on them, and it's kind of challenging to make them actually be super effective and then also not feel weak. And I'm sure there's different cases where people have different interpretations of it, but we always tune them around the sort of challenge you have as a player and trying to get that right. So in Legendary, they're actually... You've kind of got to be a bit more careful with them, and if you just let them run into combat, they get killed pretty quickly. And then you're back to playing solo again. No, that was very much intentional. This moment here, we always wanted to get this into the game with the hunter and the worms came down before when the elevator was going down. So that's
cool.
It's another one of those little lore things where I don't know if most people actually realize they were made of a living colony of worms. They're kind of weird. So yeah, this is a good area to actually use the orders on the hunters because you can flank them. See if I can get him to deflect. Because these are grenades coming out of the Hydra, he'll actually deflect them sometimes. So in here, we've got the usual kind of clamber paths so we can get up on the top here. It's a good way to stay away from their incoming fire. Shoot him in the back. He's down. So this guy goes into berserk mode now. He's going to fire his little burst shots, and he starts chasing the team around and smashing them and shooting at me. You can also ground pound these guys, and it's kind of dangerous to do, but you can. They get a slight stun. Let's see if I can get behind him. Oops,
oh no.
So yeah, ground pounding on the big guys always gets you like a kind of stun on them, which gives you a little brief window to get in behind them. You can use it on a knight if you knock his armor off, and then you can then assassinate him. Another thing in here is if you actually don't fight these guys, there's an achievement around this, but if you don't fight those guys, you can just actually sprint through and go and open this up. And when you get to the very end of this mission, where there's some hunters in the big hangar bay, you'll actually get these guys come after you as well, and so you get twice as many hunters in the final fight. But you also get an achievement for that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Reactor room is just ahead. We can light this fuse and bolt.
No salvage for the Covenant. Right, let's go.
Another prime ground pound point in here. Later, dudes. Always have fun. We spend a lot of time tweaking the ragdolls on the characters so that they go flying. And there's another station log in there. Alright, so this room has got a skull, so don't let me leave this room without showing you where it is.
Scaffold fire!
Do you ever consider having dual-wielded plasma swords?
It'd be nice. We actually talked about dual wield a little bit when we started, but we were doing plenty of other new stuff, so we didn't want to go after it. This dual wield has a pretty big tuning kind of hit to it, and that you have to nerf a lot of the single wield weapons.
Right.
And we didn't really want to do that. There's different ways to get dual wield across. You can do the kind of akimbo weapons that are in certain games.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll talk about it again in the future. As it's a cool fantasy, and it's been in a few of the past games.
How soon do you? I mean, obviously this game isn't even out yet, although it is imminently. But how soon do you start planning the next one? When you've got a series as big as Halo, which is so established and
not to get into specifics.
No, I'm not expecting plot spoilers or anything. But
no, I mean there's already kind of. You sort of have a mix of kind of leftover ideas of things you didn't get to in this time around that you want to try. Usually it's not exactly a story or a scenario, but it's just ideas that someone wanted to try in a mission or some weapon someone wanted to build. And so those things kind of are sort of sitting around, and you take a look at those again. And then in terms of like mapping out the franchise, there's kind of like a couple of layers to it. There's the franchise,
again, the onion.
It's
reference.
the onion, yeah. I mean, it's kind of cliched, I guess, now, but it's true. And we have big franchise plans that are kind of sit with like Frank O'Connor and his team, and which is very broad mapping of what happens. There's a bunch of things we sort of know we need to happen coming out of 5 to move things forward, but beyond that, really, like the details are still things that we've started talking about what where we might go, but people are pretty focused on first shipping this, which is sort of finished pretty recently, and then we're doing a pretty huge effort of sustaining the game for Warzone and Arena through the rec packs. So that's like all the Sandbox team has been working on stuff for that. That wasn't in for ship, but is coming down the pipe. They've been supporting Forge, which is coming out in the not too distant future. Big Team Battle's coming out pretty soon. I don't have specific dates, but they're going to be pretty soon. And we sort of made a pretty big commitment to keep supporting the game, and we've got stuff planned. And then, of course, once the game goes live, then we'll see what people actually kind of want to see from playing it, and that'll probably reshape the plans we've got right now for what we want to build. But we want substantial updates to the game coming, for people to keep people playing and continuing on with the game.
Incoming grenade!
And so because you work with the Sandbox team,
you're
not going to get much of a break.
Not really. Although the extra stuff we're doing is not quite. They've actually been getting through a lot of it already.
Okay.
Ahead of of all the updates coming out. Because there is a lot. I know it's sort of a running joke for people around DLC and stuff on the disc, but there is a very long time to get something built, tested, play tested into multiplayer, and especially in a period where you know, people are starting to go on vacation after the game ships. Some people are still focused on the shipping game. Certainly, our networking guys are in that group. So we can go up here as a. So you know, there's stuff going on, but it's a very strange period at the end of game development. The screen's a bit dark. I can't see what's going on. Let's see if this works. There we go.
You should use a ground pound to light the way.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There we go. So this area up here, there's a little nook down here I just dropped in, and there's actually a ground pound down into here. And oh, what's that? Looks like a skull. The black guy skull. And then I think we got some weapons in here too. Yeah, it's another Hydra launcher. And DMR.
Man, I missed so many of these things.
So, yeah, some of them are pretty well hidden. Now the door opens up in this back room.
All because of the gamma on my TV screen.
Yeah. Yeah, this level in particular has got a lot of dark, shadowy corners.
Yeah.
So it's easy to miss stuff.
That ground pound torch tip was pretty nice. Using it to light the darkened corner. Never would have thought of that.
Could also tried like a plasma grenade or something, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, we go to this is kind of an old research lab, but there's this is the kind of the nuclear reactor room, but they're going to overload this reactor, and because they're blue team, they're just going to ride it down. So the whole idea here is that they're trying to overload the ship and scuttle it, but the ship's systems actually thwart them and is going to eject the nuclear core, so it's not going to blow the whole station up like they wanted. So it's time to ride the core down, obviously.
Ride the lightning.
What else would you do as a Spartan?
The safety systems are set to pump coolant to the reactor.
This whole plan.
When you said earlier that this game, the campaign, was originally a lot longer, so when you're sort of trimming it down, is that just sort of to avoid sort of repetition or?
Yeah, I mean,
or technical hurdles, I guess.
It's kind of everything. It's
right.
like there's technical reasons. We barely got through the whole campaign, built and arted up as it was. It didn't really need to be longer. Like it's making it longer for the sake of being longer.
Right.
A lot of the bits we cut were not really. Yeah, some of them were repetition. Some of them were just not
that Banshee
super
just
exciting.
fell off?
Yeah, I think it got EMP'd. I don't know.
That's cool.
It probably was shooting something at me and then EMP'd it.
That's awesome.
It's the usual sandbox. So yeah, I mean, this area we wanted to make, like, kind of go out with a bang and have something that felt really big and get some Banshees in. There was many different versions of this whole sequence across development, but it sort of turned into this big sandbox kind of bowl. And again, lots of little things to do in here. You also got all the main areas where the objectives are, but you can actually kind of get down on all those kind of cross beams, and down there there's some weapons and stuff down there.
Yeah, right.
If you want to, you can do that. Then we kind of came up with the whole thing of like we wanted it at flying scale, but then if you want to do the whole thing on foot, then we should support that as well.
Yeah, but I see like those sorts of things. I just assume that they're just like painted on, like those that you just can't get to them. I had no idea that
I guess you got the rocket launcher now.
You'd hide items and gameplay and stuff down there.
Yeah, we try to do it whenever we can. I mean, sometimes you have technical reasons that you can't, make a level insanely huge, but this one we deliberately kind of planned around that.
I really enjoy this section, but there's also another sort of Banshee. Actually, I can't remember if it was Banshee or the other flying vehicle, but anyways, it's quite an epic section as well.
Yep. Yeah, we wanted to get a couple of good flying sections in.
Yeah.
They're oh, out of the way. Sorry. It's alright, I'll rescue them.
Override controls.
Chief's patented button punching technique.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't use door handles, and he doesn't.
How are we doing with ammo there? Oops.
Whoa.
We'll Walk straight into that one.
Coolant system inner workings are exposed.
Eliminate the targets, Blue Team.
Grab banshees.
So then the next section with all the vents, we just wanted an area where you can just fly around and shoot stuff.
Yep,
It's
that's what I like.
It was pretty funny when we actually did user research on this one. People quite often just spent like 10 or 15 minutes just killing all the banshees that were coming in.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's fine. It's, you know, if you're enjoying yourself, we're
Yeah.
quite happy for you to do that. Actually tweak the banshees so that they actually have the shields at this time, just to try and make the combat against them a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
If you just like pepper them and then leave them alone, they're going to recharge. And then when you play on harder difficulty in here, it actually gets kind of challenging because there's quite a few grunts with plasma Furo cannons and plasmas, and they can get kind of nasty on you. So you got all the vents. You want to make sure that you can kind of tell pretty clearly when they explode, and they got the big fires coming out of them.
Yeah. That was a flashy move for little reward.
Yeah, so again, if you want, you can do this whole section on foot.
Why would you
Takes
though?
quite a bit longer. Yeah, it's not really any need.
Keep firing on those coolant.
Yeah, Banshee bombs are definitely the easiest way to go.
Nice.
System failing. Reactor core temperature rising. Immediate evacuation advised.
Some tricks. Always fun. They're pretty useful and legendary because you can evade the incoming fire.
Yeah.
No, an autopilot retrieval. Amada must have taken it out.
Frederick, find the nearest hangar bay. We're taking a Prowler. There's the hangar entrance.
Prowler is just inside, through an airlock.
I actually kind of like that we got the whole team to fly down and bail out of there. The Banshees.
Yeah, it's cool. Whoa.
Oh, he just dropped it off the edge.
That was expensive.
That's alright, it's just Covenants.
Move to the Prowler.
Reactor core temperature has exceeded 1,373 Kelvin.
I think we've got another,
Yeah, it's green.
another station there. Station log. And yeah, so that's ultimately we want to get out to. That's the ship's called the Prowler.
So just a throwback to the beginning of this level. Are we now inside?
Now we've moved through. So from the part that's in that ship was the two big open combat encounters.
Oh,
with
right.
And then when you move out of the end of that one, you're moving off the ship again into another area. The station's actually quite long. We had different versions of it. There was one version early on where you could you're always in that big inside hangar, so you could always see. But we ended up going away from that.
Right.
But yeah, I just spent a long time designing the Prowler as a big new ship and sort of a central piece in this space.
Yeah.
And this was really just designed as a big sandboxy power weapon. I mean, there's quite a few power weapons in here. And so certainly on normal, we just wanted to, you're going to get to, kick a lot of ass in here. And they're sore. Actually, I'll take the rocket launcher back as well. And yeah, there's a few levels in here. There's all the guys with fuel rods. There's lots of like weapons in these little open crates around the level. Oh.
Whoa. Nice use of the boosted dodge.
Yeah, it's good for melee lunges if you can use them to get away. And then there's this kind of undersection here. There's, I think, a rocket launcher and a few other weapons down here. There's a rocket launcher. So this is really good. And legendary, you kind of pretty much need to use this undersection because you get wrecked up the top here. There's just lots of different ways you can play around in here.
Yeah.
Stop talking, start killing. Turn on the fuel pump.
Reactor containment failure. Immediate evacuation advised.
Launch controls are here.
Vehicle launch preparations initiated. Fuel cells at 0%. Initiate.
See a bit of a few Covenant ships out there.
For launch.
More hunters.
How much do you guys go and like fire real guns?
I didn't get to go and do it. We actually have our audio team tends to go and do a lot of that
Right.
crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think they've got. I think on 4 they got some contacts with some U.S. Army guys, and so they get, they get to go out and just record all sorts of crazy stuff. I think they actually took mics out on a Abrams tank or something on the turret of it, and they just fired
What?
shells on a proving ground range.
Wow.
Yeah, so they get to do all sorts of crazy stuff, and then they go off and have all these probably not safe potato guns and things that they build and record. And
Wait, why would they build a potato gun?
oh, just there's some sound in it that they like. I don't. They're quite dedicated
Have
to
they-
getting awesome audio for.
Have they thought of building an onion gun?
an onion gun?
Just
Maybe
in keeping
like
with the general Halo theme.
perhaps. Yeah.
What about, like, do they get, like, alien weaponry from NASA? You know, the top secret stuff?
From Area 51. Yeah, they kind of just take a weekend down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the created stuff they spend a lot of time on kind of getting the right sounds for like weird Forerunner things. They have some crazy.
Ooh.
That's not good. Yeah, like all sorts of crazy audio equipment and stuff that can just feed samples through on themselves, and I don't really understand. They got some crazy device that synthesizes sounds
Right.
from a bunch. It's I can't remember what it is. It's some really weird thing that one of the audio guys got. It's not just a straight like sampler or anything. But anyway, it makes crazy sounds, and they like making all sorts of weird Forerunner stuff with it. But they're always just searching for like the most unique, impactful audio they can get for everything, so that people sticks in their brains.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spent a long time trying to get the audio mix right this time, and they were a bit rushed, so we sort of made sure we did everything so that they got a bit more time to really get it polished, and then our composer Kazuma did an awesome job with the music in this game. There's kind of lots of throwbacks to the past games, particularly in the Blue Team missions. There's a lot of classic themes that come back. But in rearranged form, and then we spent a lot of time going through the campaign with those guys and just sort of trying to as a group kind of pick out all the key moments when the music should come up, when they did most of it. We just kind of had opinions on it, but it was a really, really cool process, and it's takes quite a bit of iteration to really get all that right, because you've got characters talking, you've got combat that you need to hear, you've got big events going on out the windows and off in the vistas. So we spend a lot of time working through, what's the most important thing, because if you just put sound on everything, it just turns to mush, and so you really have to think about, what you're doing with the sound.
Time, Linda.
Well, I think that sort of brings us to the end of this first sort of hour or so of the Halo 5 campaign.
Kind of gets the characters off and going.
Very well played and spoken.
I didn't die too many times.
I think it was usually when I was distracting you somehow. But anyways, thank you very much, Brad, for joining us for this Let's Play commentary.
Yeah, I was always glad to show off the game. Yeah.
Nice one. All the best for the launch and, of course, the subsequent multiplayer salvo that's incoming.
Can't wait for everyone to play it, and let us know what you think once you're playing it, and I can't wait for you to get your hands on it.
Nice one. For all things Halo 5, stay right here, IGN.